Hello, my name is Mayank Jain, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager in the Azure Digital Apps and Innovation Group. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about Azure's fully managed services to help you modernize existing enterprise apps to the cloud. Sometimes called Platform as a Service or PaaS, we will learn how it can provide one of the most optimal balances of cost and speed as part of your app innovation portfolio. Let's dive into it. The way we live and work has changed. Industry leaders are shifting their engagement with users, shoppers, patients, voters from physical to digital channels. Their customers are more informed. Organizations have different reasons to modernize, but everyone is in on it. In many cases, it is a competitive necessity so as not to be left behind by the market forces. In other cases, it may be driven by industry regulation and the imperative to use the latest security technology. Modernization is also a compelling way to shed capital expenditure and reduce costs by becoming more nimble in how you use your available resources. Getting to the cloud is no longer an if, but when. That said, many modernization projects don't achieve their intended outcome. The way we live and work has changed. Industry leaders are shifting their engagement with users, shoppers, patients, and voters from physical to digital channels. Their customers are more informed. Organizations have different reasons to modernize, but everyone is in on it. In many cases, it is a competitive necessity so as not to be left behind by market forces. In other cases, it may be driven by industry regulation and the imperative to use the latest security technology. Modernization is also a compelling way to shed capital expenditure and reduce costs by becoming more nimble in how you use your available resources. Getting to the cloud is no longer an if, but a when. That said, many modernization projects don't achieve their intended outcomes. There are several reasons, and they usually relate to a mismatch between the business needs and finding the technology that addresses those needs. Over 50% of developers are outside the tech industry, and they're great at building innovative apps. But are they as fluent in having a cloud native skill set? They need a cloud solution that just works out of the box. Then, with a 68% increase in data breaches, all it takes is one unpatched vulnerability in your underlying infrastructure, and your entire app mod project could be pushed back by weeks or months. Security can no longer be an afterthought in these modernization projects. But despite their best intentions, many companies simply cannot afford the luxury of a dedicated cloud native team, a security team, and an infrastructure management team. Often, it's just a few individuals or even the developers themselves that have to do it, while also being responsible for releasing new code at 7x the speed compared to just a few years ago. And add to all this the fact that services are no longer limited by geography. A good idea can go global within a short span of time, and you have to plan for scale, performance, reliability from day one. This is sometimes easier for SaaS apps, but what about the majority of enterprise apps that were not originally written for the cloud? They need a way to not only modernize, but leapfrog those expectations in order to stay competitive. In short, enterprise CEOs have a difficult task to adjust to this new reality and to prepare for an uncertain future amid a war for talent. They need to enable their teams to succeed in this cloud-first environment, all while keeping costs down. There are many ways to address these challenges. We frequently hear from customers, how do I select the right tool for hosting applications, whether I'm modernizing existing apps or building new technology? Infrastructure as a service or IaaS technologies give you more control over the underlying configuration, whether it is through virtual machines or containers. Platform as a service or PaaS is a fully managed service where you focus on developing the applications and a cloud service provider such as Azure manages everything else. With IaaS, you manage the underlying cloud infrastructure yourself. An example is to manage cloud native apps built using microservices that run on Kubernetes containers. This requires investment in additional tooling, in automation and management to take full advantage of those containers. PaaS sometimes is a faster approach when you want to modernize existing monolith web apps to the cloud. But these are not strict definitions. Organizations can and do use a mix of these approaches depending on the type of the app, how much control they need, their in-house skill set, and the available time to deliver. In this session, we will go deeper into the PaaS approach. When it comes to future-proofing your apps, we start by asking, what outcomes are you seeking from this project? What are your priorities and success criteria for the app modernization projects to succeed? Based on our conversation with customers, 3 themes come up. The first is to do more with less and to reduce IT spend. Modernization projects are hard enough without any overkill that runs up unnecessary costs and risks which may not be justified by the business case. The second is security and performance. Any digital business today must be hardened against inevitable cyber attacks from the get-go, not as an afterthought. And more than ever before, your business needs to have global scale, high availability, and immediate troubleshooting throughout the entire software development lifecycle, or you risk losing customers to the competition. And finally, creating room for developers to dream big, to innovate faster, and at the highest quality. At the end of the day, the developers want platforms that make it easy to build, test, and operate modern apps. Constructing and managing the platform is just table stakes. You can no longer apply old school operations processes to build and maintain these platforms, nor can you afford to have delays associated with IT as a gatekeeper. Modern IT is an enabler who not only understands the goals and pains of the developer, but also identifies the technology choices that will empower achievement of those shared outcomes. Let's look at that one by one. This need to use technology as a value driver pervades every aspect of business today. But no large organization is operating a greenfield operation with a blank check to innovate and accelerate. They need to work with, through, and around existing systems and applications that are a core asset that drive both revenue and value and ensure the smooth operation of the business. Rationalization has long been the dream in such environments, but the reality is that rewriting applications from scratch is rarely an option. Many organizations choose to simply migrate the virtual machines hosting the application to the cloud. These migrations are simple and often the fastest, but they do cause the organization to miss out on many of the benefits of moving to the public cloud. Move and improve represents a happy medium between these two extremes of rewriting completely or lift and shift. Sometimes known as replatforming, the application components are moved to a platform as a service offering, such as Microsoft's Azure App Service or Azure Spring Apps. Companies get the benefit of having the cloud provider manage the underlying infrastructure and software of the platform, while only needing to make minor changes to their applications. Alongside potential cost reductions, the benefits of replatforming include increased productivity using the dev, test, and staging environments, the ability to run on the latest versions of the OS languages and frameworks, and up to 99.95% SLA uptime, as well as the use of modern DevOps practices such as continuous integration and continuous delivery. You will find a customer story on customers.microsoft.com about how Bosch realized some of these cost benefits. As a longtime partner of Microsoft, Bosch asked for suggestions to grow to a global scale for Track and Trace, their Java-based IoT solution for supply chain logistics used primarily in Germany and Europe. When the Microsoft representative saw Spring applications in a Cloud Foundry environment, he suggested Azure Spring Apps, the platform as a service for Spring developers. At its core, Azure Spring Apps runs on Azure Kubernetes service and is designed to reduce the complexity and operational overhead of managing Kubernetes. Initially, the Bosch architects were apprehensive that to scale their solution, they'd have to dig deeper into Kubernetes and Docker, and they just weren't into it. On the contrary, Azure Spring Apps helped that small track and trace migration team meet its deadlines. The plan was to move to Azure in just 2 months, an incredibly short time for a solution of this scale. But as Philip Suzak, one of their software architects, put it, we are Java developers. We are not infrastructure guys. We are not system administrators. But with Azure Spring Cloud, we don't have to worry about managing Kubernetes or cluster downtime. Using a small team of developers, Bosch was able to scale faster and react faster to changing requirements while keeping costs down. Offloading much of the operational complexity to Azure Spring Apps is one way that they were able to achieve their goals. You can check out this one and other stories by digital leaders by going to aka.ms/digital leaders. While the idea of creating a curated experience through greater control using the IaaS model may sound appealing, not every organization has an operations team to ensure that curated experience is capable of staying compliant, not just on day zero, but every day. The ops folks must handle and understand cloud economics, ensure data resiliency so that there's no degradation of experience, and of course, perform data center hygiene like security and data protection. Using a managed service such as Azure Spring Apps or Azure App Service allows you to leverage economies of scale and learn from our experience doing this for thousands of customers like yourself. This lowers your overall technology cost structure and makes you more competitive in this economic environment. In the PaaS model, customers typically pay a fee to the cloud vendor who then hosts and manages everything: servers, network, storage, operating system, databases, development tools, everything. In fact, a recent study by GigaOM found that it is more profitable to deliver new products and higher value customer experiences using Azure PaaS as compared to alternatives. Organizations gain up to 54% saving in total cost of ownership compared to on-prem infrastructure and up to 35% cost savings compared to other cloud providers. And let's not forget, by offloading the routine IT tasks of managing the infrastructure to the PaaS vendor, you can increase the job satisfaction of your developers, who now have more time to prioritize things they love, such as app innovation and testing new business ideas. This helps with retention of developers and using their time on things that bring more revenue to your business. Another challenge is that in this critical moment when cybersecurity has reached an inflection point, it is getting harder every day for organizations to build and maintain a full security team, let alone one with ever-expanding skill set required to meet the range of today's security demands. For innovation to happen, people must feel safe. One way to get peace of mind, innovate faster, and reduce the burden on your teams is to get comprehensive security help from the company that invests more in cybersecurity than anyone else. Microsoft invests over $1 billion annually on security, and in 2021, we announced plans to spend $20 billion on cybersecurity over the next 5 years. With Azure PaaS services, security and resilience capabilities are built into the platform, and there's a shorter learning curve for developers to prioritize these things in their app development. You can further improve your security posture and threat protection with Azure Security Center and extensive compliance certifications. Similarly, when it comes to performance and scale, you want to build on infrastructure with an enterprise-grade 99.95% SLA that will not fail when your customers need it the most. With Azure Managed Services, you can easily scale out these underlying VMs to match the demand or configure auto-scaling to sense and respond to changing traffic patterns. And you can do this in over 60 regions now. KPMG LLP is the US arm of the KPMG Global Organization of Independent Professional Services Firms that provide auditing and tax and advisory services. The challenge for the team at KPMG was to quickly deliver a secure self-service environment for their internal clients that offered a smooth cloud migration path for end-of-life on-prem apps. The KPMG and Microsoft teams collaborated to build this using Azure Managed Services, such as Azure App Service and Azure SQL Edge. This newly introduced pre-dev landing zone has become a true game changer, allowing KPMG to spin up cloud workloads before a formal project is even initiated, therefore saving them valuable resources and time. It allows for automated governance by incorporating the developer self-service model in which a robust, easy-to-read API-style documentation is made available to app developers to provision their own cloud infrastructure. Introducing this developer self-service model has allowed those app dev teams to focus their time on writing application code rather than form-fitting it to the back-end cloud infrastructure. This ultimately increased productivity, reduced time to market, and delivered a secure solution by leveraging security organization-reviewed and approved cataloged components. You can visit, again, aka.ms/digital leaders to check this out and other stories. from our customers. So managed services platforms help you empower non-security developers to build with a security-first mindset. By lowering these barriers of access, skill, and complexity related to security adoption in the modernization project, you realize several tangible benefits for your organization, such as reduction in spend on acquiring and integrating additional security products, increased reliability, and then trust for end customers. A strong security posture increases customers' trust in your services, which is arguably a very strong competitive advantage for you. Successful companies in today's business world are the ones that put the customer at the center of what they do. One easy way to facilitate that is by providing customer-friendly web apps and services that enable a high quality of service and support. Developers can be more productive faster when they work with the language of their choice, such as .NET, Java, Node.js, or Python, running on either Windows or Linux. Azure managed platforms support dedicated tools in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code to streamline the work of creating, deploying, and debugging these .NET and Java applications. You can even use your favorite IDEs or development environments such as Eclipse, IntelliJ, and Visual Studio Code for Java. Use build and automation tools like Maven, Gradle, and Jenkins for your continuous integration and continuous delivery needs, or CI/CD. And then quickly add services and capabilities, including managed MySQL, PostgreSQL, and SQL databases, performance monitoring, and secrets management. You can connect your applications with integration services like Azure Service Bus and Azure API management to create rich, more personalized experiences for your customers and employees using even machine learning and AI. And because this is a cloud-based managed service, there is no need for your developers to worry about the setup and maintenance of servers, patching, upgrades, authentication, or the expense and complexity of buying and managing software licenses. They simply build the applications that grow your business, and the cloud service provider manages everything else. To improve performance and reduce time to market for key customer-related apps, Jotun, a Norwegian manufacturing company, employed an app modernization approach for 9 of their on-prem apps. In implementing Azure App Service, the team took advantage of deployment slots to minimize downtime during code updates. Deployment slots run alongside default production slots as live apps with their own host names, enabling Jotun to spin up and validate changes to its apps before swapping it with a production slot. Traffic redirection is seamless. No requests are dropped when slots are swapped, and Jotun can immediately roll back to the previous production slot should an issue arise. Thanks to the team's use of app service deployment slots, customers aren't being inconvenienced with as much downtime. As Jan Erik of Jotun tells us, in the past, we had hours of downtime for each new deployment. Today, the downtime required for a software upgrade is 5 to 10 minutes, and we haven't experienced any unplanned downtime at all. The company's new delivery pipeline based on Azure DevOps has also enabled more automated and thorough testing. Jotun selected 9 apps for its initial lift and modernize project. All were older monolithic apps that ran on premises, with most being customer-facing or otherwise sales-oriented apps. They decided to start with their most important sales support and applications first, especially those where modernization would deliver the greatest customer benefit. And then within those 9 apps, they prioritized 2 groups by their potential for performance improvements, license expiration for on-prem software, or projected cost savings. Thanks to the close collaboration and trust with their partner of 8 years, Infosys, all 9 apps are in production in 9 months, in addition to the related dev, test, and QA environments. Empowering developers to achieve more requires accelerating developer velocity. What this story tells us is that empowering developers to achieve more requires accelerating developer velocity. What that means is to remove barriers and points of friction for developers using the best-in-class development tools, better working practices, and an aligned culture on their work environment. More importantly, creating an upskilling path for existing talent can offer tremendous dividends to your business in terms of greater agility, profitability, and quality. Time is another key factor in creating an environment where innovation thrives. If developers are not spending time on routine, non-productive IT tasks, such as keeping their development environment running, they have the mental bandwidth and enthusiasm to chase new ideas. Managed services take this burden off of the developers' shoulders and therefore driving up revenues by 4 to 5 times. Modernizing app estates is a big journey, and you're not alone. But in addition to working with thousands of customers, our own internal IT team, known as the Core Services Engineering Org, has been on a complex multi-year journey to adopt cloud computing across the enterprise. I'd love to share some learnings and nuggets from their experience as well. So let me talk through how Microsoft approached the same challenge and what parallels we can draw to your organization. Part of our cloud adoption strategy was moving and modernizing approximately 2,100 line of business applications to the cloud platform. These applications are spread across 8 data centers worldwide and comprise over 40,000 distinct operating system instances. Through the cloud adoption efforts, a deep understanding of the portfolio is driving engineering to identify and optimize applications that are aligned to business functions and to reduce waste. Most businesses rely on multiple workloads to deliver vital business functions. A company's cloud adoption journey will typically be built on a set of foundational decisions that impact the outcomes of that journey. After analyzing our own portfolio, for example, Microsoft IT determined the rough distributions of application placement in the cloud based on factors such as complexity of the app, the priority of the app, and business justification to opt for higher control or faster time to productivity. What we found is that about 35% apps were either unused or rarely used and could be retired or right-sized. Another 35% were the first candidates selected to modernize, and these were apps such as basic web and line of business apps and advanced portals. Apps that were going to be re-architected and new apps were going to the cloud as well. So that left about 30% of the apps, of which half or 15% were converted to a low-code solution, such as Power Apps, or replaced by SaaS apps. That left about 10% apps that had a high regulatory and high business impact, which were the last to move. And 5% apps ended up staying on-prem or just moving to VMs with no change. It is important to remember that this is not a prescription for your modernization project, but merely broad estimates from Microsoft's internal journey. Not all applications will follow the same path or patterns, and these stats would vary from one customer to another, of course. As you go down your own app mod journey, you have many choices to help you start to modernize. We've been talking so far about the capabilities and outcomes for app modernization. Here are some of the services and products that can help you achieve those goals. Azure App Service, which is an HTTP-based service for hosting web apps, REST APIs, and mobile backends. You can develop it in your favorite language, be it .NET, .NET Core, Java, Node.js, PHP, or Python, and then applications run and scale with ease on both Windows and Linux-based environments. Azure Spring Apps makes it easy to deploy Spring Boot applications to Azure without any code changes. The service manages the infrastructure of Spring Apps so that developers can focus on their code. Azure Spring Apps provides lifecycle management using comprehensive monitoring and diagnostics, configuration management, service discovery, CI/CD integration, blue-green deployments, and so on. Azure Red Hat OpenShift provides a single-tenant high-availability Kubernetes cluster on Azure, supported by both Red Hat and Microsoft. And then there are Azure integration services, such as Azure API Management, that help you to build new integrated solutions that connect applications and services on premises and in the cloud. Azure Functions is a cloud service based on available on demand that provides all the continually updated infrastructure and resources needed to run your applications. And Azure SQL Database is a fully managed platform as a service database engine that handles most of the database management functions such as upgrading, patching, backups, monitoring without any user involvement. Azure SQL Database is always running on the latest stable version of the SQL Server database engine and patched OS with 99.99% availability. So PaaS capabilities built into Azure SQL database enables you to focus on the domain-specific database admin and optimization activities that are critical for your business. As you begin your own journey, we generally find that the starting point for most customers is can be grouped into one of three buckets: modernizing your .NET apps, modernizing your Java apps, or modernizing your integration services. There are different ways to modernize, and Azure PaaS offers one of the fastest, simplest, and most cost-effective options for many customers. Simply put, there is no better place to build, host, and manage your .NET applications than Azure App Service, because along with Visual Studio family of tools, it provides unmatched developer productivity for development, live site debugging, and zero downtime through deployment slots. For ASP.NET apps in particular, Azure has unmatched offers like Azure Hybrid Benefit and Enterprise Dev Test tools that significantly reduce the cost of running these workloads on a fully managed PaaS environment that natively supports Windows. Rather than provide SDKs or build plugins, we've built natively on IIS, integrated Visual Studio directly into the platform to make and ship code changes in real time, and created our managed SQL platform on the same code base as SQL Server. Azure's been building, managing, and improving these services for 25 years now. We run 2 million sites, 40 billion plus requests, and over 9 trillion SQL queries every day with 99.95% SLA or higher. We are better than AWS in end-to-end developer experience, better than GCP in providing native Windows support, and better than Heroku in supporting enterprise use cases. And with our free migration assistance, it has never been easier to get started with your .NET apps in Azure App Service. Java is a strategic language of choice on Azure as well, and we support Java developers on multiple levels to deploy their Java applications. No matter what your architecture looks like, Azure has a solution for you, from monolithic applications to microservices or even serverless apps. No matter what type of Java apps you're running, you can choose from batch processes, nano services, microservices, all the way up to Java Enterprise Edition and Jakarta EE applications. Our strong partnerships with Java partner ecosystem ensures that you're successful with any kind of Java workload on Azure, whether from VMware, Red Hat, Oracle, and others. And then, of course, integration PaaS, which creates a centralized management system for all these microsystems involved, whether on-premises or in the cloud. It transforms your data and moves your data between applications you have with its provided library of connectors so that your modernization projects can have an end-to-end impact. With Azure integration services such as API management, logic apps, service bus, and others, you can automatically create a secure workflow and orchestrate the business processes no matter where they are hosted. So what are the next steps? Azure has the tools to help you shape your technology, business, and people strategies to achieve the best business outcomes possible through your cloud adoption effort. The Azure Migrate tool performs detailed assessment of applications and database readiness, including preferred hosting options in Azure and relevant pricing details to help you discover, assess, and migrate with ease. Things like Azure Landing Zone accelerators are open source collection of architectural guidance and reference implementation to accelerate deployment of Azure services at scale. They are part of the Cloud Adoption Framework, which brings together cloud adoption best practices from Microsoft employees, partners, and customers. This framework provides tools, guidance, and narrative to help you with your modernization projects to succeed with minimum cost and minimum effort. Work with your Microsoft representative to schedule an envisioning workshop to conduct an assessment of your app estate, and then work with partners through the Azure Migration and Modernization Program to find people with advanced specialization in app modernization to help you succeed as well. You can learn more about these resources and product at these links. So that was just a quick overview of how Azure App Platform Services can help streamline, automate, and offload the app modernization pieces to Azure. All this so that you can reduce costs, operate more confidently, and innovate faster. In the remaining sessions, you will learn more details about various aspects of this journey. If you have any feedback or questions, you can reach me on Twitter at MayankJ, or that's @MAYUNKJ. I thank you for your time and hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.